This guy's name is Shadow. The first time he appeared around here was probably close to 5 years ago. But this is the first winter he's decided to live full-time with us. We think someone may have dumped him up here again nearly 5 years ago, and he has more or less lived off the land up until this year. Now he likes to go on long walks with Cedar and the dogs. It's time to move the deer feeder again, but the feeder is frozen into the ground, so I have to use my least favorite tool, the high lift jack, to get the feeder broke loose. When we first started our YouTube channel back in the early days, there was a moment where I realized I had to make a decision about what kind of videos I was going to make. The end result is we chose to make videos about our family, about our land, or about what happens to be going on in our life at the time. And many of you guys have hung around and watched every single video, and this means the world to us, even when some of these videos may not be as entertaining as others. This week's video is another one of these videos that may not be as entertaining to you as it is to me. But either way, in a world of shorts and reels and continuous content coming your way from every possible source, We're grateful you stopped by to see what we're doing. I finally managed to get the floor and the firewall figured out, welded in. Now I just need to clean up the welds before I seal everything up. I've been thinking about switching my cutting torch over to propane from acetylene, and in order to do this I need to fill up one of these 100-pound tanks. Rather than running to town every time my acetylene tank goes empty with my cutting torch, I finally decided to make the switch to propane. With mixed reviews, I've thought about it for a number of years, but it's now time to give it a try. When I first had the bobtail propane tank filled this summer, the pressure in the tank was as high as 170 psi. At this exact moment, it's about 50 psi. As the temperature goes down, the pressure inside the bobtail propane tank goes down as well, and at this moment it's about 17 degrees. I need to get back on the shop at some point over winter, but I'm afraid if I pull off this truck, I'm not going to touch it for a long time, so I'm going to do everything I can to at least get this truck running before I get too sidetracked. And the truth is, I don't know if I want to do another project like this with as much rust as this truck has once I get the shop completely finished. But the reverse shackle kit for the 85 through 91 bullnose Ford trucks finally showed up. And I'm very curious to see how high this truck is going to sit once I get that Superduty axle and the reverse shackle kit installed. I intended on using the cutting torch and the propane tip to cut these rivets off the frame, but as you'll see, I had some issues with the gauges. This is the reverse shackle kit. This reverse shackle kit not only allows you to move the shackles from the front of the truck to the rear, which makes the truck handle much better and makes it more stable, but this kit now allows you to use the longer leaf springs off the Superduty trucks. So not only will the truck handle much better, but it should be a much softer ride, which is always my concern with these old trucks. The rear shackles have to be completely removed for the low profile shackle which comes with the kit. By running these Superduty leaf springs, it automatically gives you about a 2.5 inch lift. This is the 99 F250 Superduty that I'm using for the suspension and the axles. By adding the Superduty suspension and axle to that front truck, it solves all of the issues with the TTB front end that was in the 80s and 90s F250s and F350s. Guess what other piece of equipment around here has a naturally aspirated, completely mechanical diesel engine in it as well? My 30-year-old skid steer that always starts on the coldest of mornings. The lug pattern on these axles is 8x170. The original lug pattern on the 69 F250 would have been 8x6.5. This is the door for my skid steer that I repaired last week for about $50. It seems I'm always trying to balance my time between what I want to do and what I should be doing. And getting this plow truck going is what I should be doing. I still haven't tested all of the hydraulics on this plow truck to make sure everything is working the way that it should be. I only gave about $1,500 for this truck originally because I knew it had a couple of issues, but it was used to plow snow last year. I think one of the solenoids is going out, but it has a brand new motor in it, and I'm hoping to keep this thing for a while. But this will be my 5th winter pushing snow full time up here, and the very first thing that has to be done is get the tire chains put on. Hi, Willie. Well, my gauges are frozen up. That's what I get for having cheap gauges. So the propane saga is to be continued. One of these days, I'm going to get a real set of American-made gauges for my cutting torch, but using my angle grinder, I was still able to get the rear shackle removed. It simply took 5 times longer than it would have if I'd been using my cutting torch. But more than the cost of acetylene, the thing that I'm looking forward to most with the propane is again my ability to fill the tanks here. Obviously, getting this front suspension figured out and that Superduty front axle installed underneath this truck will be a major step towards getting the truck back on the road. But I still have brake lines and fuel lines and electrical and a whole lot of little things to figure out before I'll feel good about taking this thing on a long drive. But I can't wait to see how this truck rolls down the road compared to every other old truck that I've ever owned. I'm going to have to take a break on the Bumpside for a couple of days while I take care of a few small projects around here that need to be addressed before we have too much snow on the ground. And one of those projects is relocating the diesel tank up the hill and getting it stacked on some railroad ties next to the propane tanks. And I feel like I have one more last chance to get this done, and that'll be this next coming week. But I also need to take a minute to get the shop organized and cleaned up. Happy New Year wherever you are in the world, and we thank you for taking time to watch our videos. We'll see you in a week. Okay, let's go over what we've got here. 1990 F250 frame and drivetrain, 7.3 IDI with a ZF5 transmission. Sitting on Superduty axles out of a 99 F250 that have the 8x170 lug pattern. In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to change that to 8x6.5. That way these wheels go on just a little better. But this factory suspension from out from under the Superduty lifts this truck up at least as high as where a high boy would be sitting, maybe even a tiny bit higher. And I can tell you, this project is slowly turning into my favorite project. I can see I'm going to build another one of these bump sides, probably even sitting on this frame. It may have a Cummins in it, but this truck is just slowly turning into a really cool truck. I need to take my time and finish the firewall and the transmission tunnel in a way where I'm happy with it. So somehow I have to find time to work on this thing and still keep moving on with the other projects. I've got to finish the shop, but I don't want to finish the shop until I finish the rust repair on this truck, because the kind of dirt that shows up in a shop with rust repair is probably not the kind of dirt I'm going to want in here once the shop is finished. I've got to get the bathroom and the bedrooms finished. I've got to get the diesel tank behind the shop. I've been trying to find a minute to move that tank for months now. There's now enough snow on the ground. I think I'm going to build a skid and drag that tank up the hill with a skid steer and put it up there by the propane tanks. I want to get that done at some point in the next week or two. So next week, the cab's going to come off. I'm going to try and get all the rust repair done. And at some point, I've got to detail the frame. I'm sure I'm going to paint underside of the bed and the cab, everything with POR 15. But it's now finally getting really, really cold outside, and that kind of complicates things. But again, thanks for hanging in here with me, and we will see you guys in a week.